Typically topical this Thursday night on BBC One, wrapping up on a busy week for Trump on newscast in an hour after the first question time of 2026.
For tonight's question time, we've come to Macclesfield in Cheshire. Famous for its role in Britain's silk industry in the 18th century, the town is today home to major employers such as AstraZeneca. Earlier this month, non-league Macclesfield FC pulled off the biggest upset in the history of the FA Cup, beating the holders Crystal Palace, sparking scenes of mass jubilation. As usual, our audience members arriving here this evening reflect the general political picture across the nation. And tonight they want to ask Donald Trump, can the UK ever really trust him? And the Tory party, is it on the verge of extinction? Welcome to Question Time from Macclesfield. Thornberry, one of Labour's leading voices on foreign affairs, who served in the shadow ministerial teams of Ed Miliband, Jeremy Corbyn and Keir Starmer. Stuart Andrew is the Conservative Shadow Health Secretary. He grew up on a council estate in North Wales and entered politics as a councillor in Wrexham. He once defected to Labour, but just for a year. Layla Moran is the Liberal Democrat chair of the Health and Social Care Committee. She's also been her party's foreign affairs spokesperson and is the first MP of Palestinian descent. And Greg Swenson is a man who hopefully can look inside the mind of Donald Trump for us. He represents US Republicans in the UK and is a commentator on American affairs. He's compared Donald Trump's diplomacy to throwing a grenade into a crowded room. Welcome to our panel. Welcome to our audience here in Macclesfield. Very good to see you. And, of course, welcome to you at home watching on your sofas. If you want to join in the conversation on social media, feel free. Otherwise, just sit back and see what everyone here has got to say. Let's take our first question, which is from Harry England.
Why are we still fostering a special relationship with Donald Trump and the US when his recent actions prove that he can't be trusted?
Well, it's been pretty lively this week, hasn't it, with Donald Trump? Greg, I'm going to come to you first, because I think you probably have a greater understanding, or certainly sympathy with Donald Trump's position. You know, we've had a week where he's threatened to take over Greenland, he's threatened to impose tariffs, he's insulted NATO allies. I just want to tell you about something he's also said this evening about NATO allies in an interview with Fox News. He talked about NATO not coming to help the United States if it needed them. And he said, we've never needed them. They say they sent some troops to Afghanistan and this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's a mistake. And look, the president is very unfiltered and often doesn't have his facts perfectly lined up. We all know that not only was the UK fighting alongside of us in both of those wars, but so was Denmark. And so, in fact, the percentage of casualties for Denmark was as high as the United States. So, look, it was a mistake. He's very unfiltered. But to the question, of course he can be trusted. I think the president wants a stronger NATO. And in many respects, alongside the Russia-Ukraine conflict, that I think inspired the Europeans to step it up. But he's been very critical. So was Barack Obama, for that matter. It's just that President Obama wasn't able to get any reaction and encourage the Europeans to step up defense spending. And the president's been successful with that. So we'll see. I mean, you have Denmark, for example, at 3%. They were only at 1.6 back in 2022. So you're seeing the outcomes. So you might not like the delivery. You might not like how he behaves or how he gets, how he makes the argument. But the argument is a good one. And so in this case, obviously a mistake on the reference to Afghanistan and Iraq, but the outcome is that we'll have a stronger NATO, whether that's because we have more defense mechanisms in Greenland or you have all the countries in NATO, all the European countries, committing to 5% of GDP. Whether they get there is a different argument.
Emily, what do you make of that comment by Donald Trump?
It's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. It's so much more than a mistake. It's an absolute insult. It's an insult to 457 families who lost someone in Afghanistan. How dare he say we weren't on the front line? How dare he? We have always been there. Whenever the Americans have wanted us, we have always been there. I went out to the United States at the beginning of the year, and I had supper with a lot of Republicans who, to be quite honest, I didn't exactly expect to get on with and have a great deal to do with. But the one thing that was clearly there was a genuine affection for the United Kingdom, because they understood they were all military men, and they knew that whenever they had been fighting alongside someone from Britain who had been there to support the United States and be involved in action with the United States. How dare this man, who's never seen any action, who somehow or other, when there was a draft for everybody else in the United States, managed to avoid it, and yet now is Commander-in-Chief and knows nothing about how it is that America has been defended. I mean, seriously, it's an absolute insult. We have had a very shocking few days. We've had a very shocking few days where we have had the leader of Britain's most important ally, you know, with whom we do have a close relationship in terms of defence, in terms of security, strong economic relationship, cultural, historic. You know, America's our friends. But we have had a leader of that country who has behaved in a way which is bullying, which is rude, which has been deliberately trying to undermine us, which has been trying to undermine NATO. And you wonder, where does this end? It's as if he has no anchor. It's as if he has no off button. And what we have done, fortunately, and I'm really proud that we have, is we have linked arms with our other friends and nations, and we have said no. Enough, Donald Trump. No more of this. You are not getting Greenland. You are not introducing tariffs. You are not going to be involved in military action. You are not going to breach international law. This is the line. Do not cross it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he will react to those threats or whatever you want to describe them as, but...
We don't threaten. We're just saying no.
Yeah, okay. But do you think NATO will be stronger because of Donald Trump? And I think the answer is yes.
No, I don't think that NATO is being stronger, because I think the idea of the most important member of NATO saying that it's going to take on NATO and is going to invade one of the NATO countries undermines us. Now, we've pulled it back from the brink, thank goodness. And actually what I'm most pleased about is that at least it helps Ukraine. Because what we don't want is NATO splintering, because it does not help a country like Ukraine for NATO at a moment like this to be splintered in this way. But you know, I'm not going to pretend that that Donald Trump has done anything other than behave in a thoroughly reckless way.
So you don't think NATO will be stronger at the end of President Trump's second term?
I was talking to the German ambassador yesterday, and I said at least one thing that comes out of this is that it helps the smaller nations of NATO to remember that we need to stick together and we need to take more responsibility.
Okay.
Of course we do.
There's lots of hands up. Let's hear from the man in the dark blue sweater with a white shirt there. Yes. Yes.
I'm very disappointed to hear that Donald Trump said that about people like myself who served in Iraq.
Yeah.
You served in Iraq?
I was in Iraq in 2003.
And so this idea that, well, he talked about Afghanistan, actually, but the idea that British troops were holding back from the front line.
I can promise you I was very close to that front line. I crossed over the border on the first day of the war, you know, and I saw things I don't want to see ever again. I think Mr. Trump has just, you know, upset all veterans now.
I'm so sorry.
OK, thank you. Yes, man here in the front in the middle.
Trump is wrong about this, but he's not wrong about NATO underspend. It's a simple fact. He warned about it in his previous tenure. We had the Bundeswehr and certain NATO exercises wielding brooms instead of machine guns. He warned about Angela Merkel's closing relationship with Putin and over-reliance on Russia for energy, which undermined European security. And the truth is, no matter what you say about him, he is getting NATO to uphold their commitments to their 2% spend. We're in a more dangerous world with Russia and China. We have to arm, and we need to start taking the threat seriously, and Trump is getting that.
OK. Harry, you asked the question. Let's hear what you've got to say on it.
My only worry is that say that NATO gets stronger, but is threatening other NATO countries with tariffs, with the ways going about it, even if NATO's stronger as a result, the means aren't worth the end. We shouldn't have one NATO country threatening another NATO country.
Exactly.
OK. Greg, I'll come back to you on that. Yes, man in the middle at the very back. Yeah. Yes, you.
Yeah, I don't know why no one expected this sooner. I mean, the United States only own all their land, unlike the continental United States. They only own the land because they moved in with military force and then forced them to buy it, forced them to sell their land that they didn't want to sell. There's already, like, tons of tribes that are being sat with massive money that they didn't want to receive from the United States. So why...
Where are you talking about in particular?
Sorry, I can't remember the name. but it's in Northern America.
Oh, so you're talking about the Native Americans?
Yeah, Native Americans. So the fact that we can recognise all of that, and then suddenly, oh, they're doing the exact same thing, but it's Denmark to a bunch of white people who, that's just, yeah.
That's unsurprising to you?
It's unsurprising to me, yeah.
Stuart? So Harry's question, by all means feel free to comment on what Donald Trump said this evening about NATO troops. But Harry's question is, why are we still fostering a special relationship with Donald Trump when his recent actions prove he can't be trusted? Do you think he can be trusted?
Well, firstly, on the comments that have been made, I want to echo that they are disgraceful comments, and I want to say thank you to the gentleman who did serve for us. There are many people in this country who served both in Iraq and Afghanistan, many of whom lost their lives, but also many more who came back with life-changing injuries, and we should say thank you to them, and it is appalling that that sort of comment has been made. Does that mean, though, that we risk our special relationship? No, because actually our relationship with America, and that's what it is, this is a relationship with the country, is so important for our defence, for our security, and for our safety.
And do you think he can be trusted?
Well, I mean, the only thing I will say is, a few weeks ago, were we all talking about the security of the Arctic? No. And we are now.
No, but we were talking about Venezuela a couple of weeks ago.
I'm not saying that I agree with the methods of getting there, but actually there is a very serious threat in the Arctic. There is a very serious threat, and Russia will expose that and use it against us.
And do you think threatening to invade was the way to get people to pay attention?
No, absolutely not. And that's why we were absolutely behind what the Prime Minister said, that you cannot say we will, you'll punish other countries with tariffs because you want to get your way in Greenland. That is not anything to do with the other NATO countries. That is for Greenland, the people of Greenland, and for the Kingdom of Denmark to decide. But for me, there's a danger you do a Love Actually moment here, but for me, a relationship means that you can be honest and frank, and that is what we have done this week. We've been honest and frank with the President to say we will not tolerate you threatening tariffs, and we will not tolerate you trying to go against the sovereignty of the people of Greenland and the rights of the Kingdom of Denmark.
Layla.
Who needs enemies when you've got friends like Donald Trump? Seriously. And the Liberal Democrats have long argued now, we should have learned from the first Trump presidency. We know what this guy's like. We're in a school. He's a bully. You're absolutely right, Emily. He's a bully. He's behaving like an international gangster. And they only understand strength. They only understand if you aren't strong enough to stand up to them on your own, you get your friends around you and you do it all together. And I think what this has shown us is that the kowtowing, the kissing of the hand that we've seen, and it has been so difficult to watch Keir Starmer and David Lammy go out there and be best pals and fishing with Vance and all of that. And I understand it was hard to see, but they were making an argument for it. We said, this is going to backfire. They don't care. And then what we saw this week is, lo and behold, they stole our lunch money one time, we caved, and why are we surprised that he did it again? He's going to keep doing it until we work out who our friends really are. And I think this is what this is doing.
But you could argue this week that he hasn't done it. That he hasn't invaded Greenland.
For now.
And the tariffs have not been imposed.
For now, but do we really want to have to go through this over and over? And it wasn't until, Mark Rutte got him in a room and made some kind of a deal that I don't think Denmark or the people of Greenland had anything to do with. But also, the EU got together, suspended trade talks, and then put 93 billion euros worth of potential sanctions against him. And we all stood in lockstep. He also achieved the unbelievable, which is he got all political parties across the whole spectrum in this country coming out against him. I mean, maybe that's a good thing, maybe not. But this is not the way grown-ups behave. And there are serious questions about his mental acuity. I mean, that is not just a small mistake. I completely agree. It's an absolute insult to brave veterans who have served and died for this country. It's not good enough. So I think it's putting into sharp relief that the way this government has approached Donald Trump is the wrong approach. It's time to have some dignity and stand up for ourselves.
I don't agree. I think that actually Keir Starmer has behaved like a grown-up this week.
No, Keir Starmer has. I'm talking about Trump.
Yeah, but, you know, the way to respond is the way that Keir Starmer has. And he has done it politely, a lot more politely than I would. But he has done it politely, and he's stood up to him, and he's been clear. And that's just in public. We can see, can't we, by the effusive way in which the Danish Prime Minister came straight over to London immediately after the deal was struck and thanked us. The amount of work that's been going on behind the scenes, the sort of things we're probably not going to read about until
let's hear a bit more from our audience. Man here in the blue shirt in the front.
Do you not think that he's one of the most dangerous men in the world at the moment? No. I mean, the way he acts, he threatens and then he pulls back, he threatens and he pulls back. Like you said, he's just like a bully. But the same thing is that he's doing more U-turns than Keir Starmer. He threatens tariffs, he pulls them back. He's just a dangerous man. He's nothing like you said. He's nothing, just like a gangster.
But what about Greg's point that countries wouldn't be paying more into their defence budgets as part of NATO if Trump hadn't been saying what he has been?
He has pushed that up, and I must admit that is the case. But sometimes when you hear him talk, you think it's all about the Donald Trump show. He's not bothered about anything else. It's about how he comes across.
Yep. Okay. Woman there in the pink jacket.
I'm concerned about the fact there's no checks and balances in place. I mean, he seems to be a lone wolf doing things on his own, exactly what he wants, and who's checking his behaviour? We've had this in history before.
I think that there are some checks and balances. I think the markets this time have spooked him. The reaction of the markets was important. I do think also that the Senate and Congress are beginning to finally find their feet. And I think that also the Supreme Court may well stop him from being able to introduce sanctions in future. I think that America still remains a democracy.
Man in the glasses there.
Yeah, I just on the point of the Trump thing and trusting him, just in relation to, obviously, this week he's also announced this new Security Council where he put £1 billion in, and he's asked...
Oh, the Board of Peace, which is about trying to maintain peace in Israel, Gaza, and rebuild Gaza.
And he's also obviously got Putin he's wanting Putin to sign and that kind of thing. Yeah. So how can we trust someone with NATO and with our country who's actively okay to allow Putin, who's a warlord invading Ukraine at the moment, to actively be involved in that as well? I think we can't just trust that.
Woman at the back.
It seems to me that the loose cannon approach that Trump employs is part of his business strategy as well. You know, that pitch high and then come back from it. But I also think about Russia and China and what are they doing? Are they sitting back and
laughing? You
know, with their arms folded and some popcorn and a drink and watching all this chaos that is ensuing because this man is, as someone said earlier, thrown a grenade into the European Union and the European and Greenland, etc. So what are they learning from how Trump is behaving?
Is there anyone here? We had one person in the front who I don't want to put words into you, sort of making the case for what Trump has been doing. Is there anyone else here who takes that view? Yes, woman at the back in the glasses. Let's hear from you.
I think Trump, he is one of the most powerful leaders in the world. And when he makes his threats, he does actually get things done. He's involved in all the peace talks around Ukraine, the Russia, Iran, Gaza, Israel. What's the UK government doing? What's Keir Starmer doing?
OK, the man here in the front.
I wouldn't say I trust Trump, but I trust America. But it's a weak Europe that has allowed him to do this. So he can kind of do what he wants. But I think ultimately America we can trust. But if we had a stronger Europe, then today we actually sort of over the last couple of days we've actually shown that we are a little bit strong, and he did listen to us then. But if we'd done that from the beginning, and we had a strong NATO,
might not have been in this position.
Yeah.
So Greg, first of all, I just wonder what you think about what you're hearing. And listen, I'm not trying to paint you as the spokesperson for Donald Trump. I'm not trying to put you in that position.
I don't work for the campaign.
You're the head of Republicans overseas UK, so we're going to try and pick your brains on this.
Yeah.
How should we see the world order developing under Trump? I mean, one of the criticisms that is made of him is that his view is might is right. Sod the diplomacy, sod international law, issues of sovereignty, all of it inconvenient. As long as you're powerful, that's the only thing that matters. Is that fair?
It is fair because he believes in peace through strength, which started with Eisenhower in the 50s. Ronald Reagan got most of the credit for it because he developed it as a concept and he used the term quite a bit, but it was actually Eisenhower doing it quietly. And so, you know, that's what he wants. He wants peace through strength. And so he's settled armed conflict so far. He's very conscious of China and Russia as adversaries. That's why he wants to control, to some degree, Greenland, so we can develop the Golden Dome, we can develop more defense mechanisms. He doesn't want Russia to jump into the arms of China. Russia and China together is a much bigger threat than Russia and China divided. So he wants to bring, at least try to bring Russia into the Western fold. The only time they really behaved well in the last 80 years since the war has been when they were more integrated with the West in the 90s. Didn't last more than a decade, unfortunately. But so I think he sees the fact that you know, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. There's a certain honesty to that. And Mark Carney and Keir Starmer are now reaching out to China. That's not the outcome we want. No. But we also want to make sure that Russia is not reaching out to China. I mean, they already have this sort of loose partnership, but you know, with China being the much bigger partner, obviously. So there's no doubt that America has pivoted to Asia in terms of our defense policy. In the Obama years, we took our capabilities of a two-front war down to 1.5, and now it's down to 1, really. And on the special relationship, you know, that is going to continue. That's not. I mean, there's speed bumps. You know, as Stuart said, you know, sometimes friends have disagreements. Sometimes friends misbehave.
I mean, friends don't generally call each other stupid, do they?
Yeah, you know, he's an equal.
Some do.
Well, okay. We're not generally what you'd expect at a kind of diplomatic statement like that.
He called an entire audience stupid because, you know, he's picking on alternative or clean energy. And of course, I thought that was great that he backed away from net zero. But, you know, when he says you're stupid if you buy windmills, you know, is it tasteful? No. Is it diplomatic? No. But he's a different kind of president. He's all about outcomes. And polite diplomacy hasn't really worked for the last few generations. It didn't work for President Obama when he used polite diplomacy to ask his friends to spend more on defense because the burden was all on the United States, and you had a threat from Russia, you know, not too far from your front door. And so that didn't work. So he's using a different method. He's done this before. It's amazing how, you know, where you throw, you know, you say something provocative, everybody freaks out for a few days, and then the outcome is good. And so he's done that first term, second term. You might not like it. I know they don't like it in polite diplomatic circles and the salons of Paris, but hang on
a minute. If you're Greenland,
yeah.
You probably feel a little bit more strongly than you don't like it if someone says we're going to take over
Sure,
the country.
It's interesting we talked about, you know, sovereignty for Greenland. I mean, they're a colony, well, not a colony officially, they're a territory of Denmark. So it's kind of odd talking about sovereignty when they don't have it. And I'm quite sure they'd like self-rule. I know that it polls very well in Greenland. But they also depend on...
They've gone off the idea since the Americans started threatening them. They now want to be definitely part of Denmark.
Sure, and they need the $1 billion a year in welfare payments from Denmark as well.
But they don't want to be American, that's the point.
Someday they might. And I think,
but not now.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll put it to a referendum, and maybe those voices there will say. But, I mean, I just have to I get what you're trying to say, right? And in terms of the rules-based order changing, I think the West as a whole, but Europe in particular, does need to take some accountability. We did let our armed forces slip back. Under the last government, we saw the lowest number of armed troops that we've ever had in this country. I think we got complacent, and I think we saw the rise of Russia and China. We saw their capabilities before our eyes and just pretended it wasn't happening. And I think for that, we need to take a level of accountability. But it does cross a line when we need, at this point, to be strengthening NATO. This is exactly the moment, for the reasons you've described, that we need to stand stronger together. And when he threatens to invade a fellow NATO member, that is implosion of something that should be strengthened. So absolutely, we should be increasing our defence spending. Absolutely. In order to prepare for peace, you have to prepare for war.
And as for bringing Russia into the Western fold, when Russia has invaded Europe, I mean, that's essentially what we have a battle
thinking
going
long term.
Well,
I mean, to the ladies' point at the back, I think Russia and China this week are laughing at us, and it's disgraceful.
All right, I'm going to. So will you forgive me? I'm sorry. I've got to get some other questions in because I've seen the questions you submitted tonight, and I think you'll have our guts for garters if there's one in particular we don't get to. So anyway, I just want to tell you where we are next week, which is Kings Lynn. And the week after that, we're off to Dorking. So if you live in or around Kings Lynn or Dorking, you'd like to come and be part of the Question Time audience, apply to the website, all the instructions in there, and hopefully we will see you. Right, Daniel Clark, where are you sitting? Where are you? Brilliant, off you go.
Given the number of defections to Reform UK, is the death of the Conservative Party imminent?
Right, so Reform now has 7 MPs. Their numbers swelled by Robert Jenrick, former Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary, Nadeem Zahawi, once Conservative Chancellor, only for a couple of months, but nonetheless he served, not currently an MP, and Andrew Rosindale, Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs. Is the death of the Conservative Party imminent?
Well, I think you know that I'm going to say absolutely not.
If it's not looking good, is it?
Look, I'm not going to pretend that this week and the defections have been easy. Of course they haven't. And for some of my colleagues, those have been quite incredibly painful because they are people who they have supported, they're good friends of. And the manner in which, well, certainly one defection was done, I thought was pretty appalling, frankly. But what I have seen this week within the Parliamentary Party and within our shadow cabinet is an absolute determination to carry on with the project that Kemi Badenoch has been doing, which is the renewal and the rebuilding of our party. And yes, it's going to take time. I get that. It's not going to be easy.
And when you've got Robert Jenrick saying, when he was in government, there wasn't a principle the Conservative Party wouldn't betray. I mean, that's got to hurt.
Yeah, well, look,
and is it true?
Well, the funny thing is, he was in the government. So, you know, I do have some issues with some of the statements that Robert has been making. And I would say, I'm afraid, being quite frank, that I think after party conference, when Kemi gave, I think, one of the best leaders' speeches I have seen for a long time, I think it started to dawn on him that the opportunity to challenge her was diminishing. Then she had her excellent response to the budget and the Prime Minister's questions and so on. And this week, she acted decisively with him. She is the strong leader that we need to get us united and to get the policies that will get this country working. And I have full confidence that, you know, it will take time and it's not been easy. But I have seen my colleagues in Parliament and my party members in my association who are absolutely determined to do the job, support Kemi, unite and rebuild.
Layla.
Anyone here watch The Traitors? It makes you wonder what it's like round the Conservative shadow cabinet table. You don't have to comment at all, but I do.
It's very, very united, even more so now.
Well, I do wonder. And then they go off in side rooms and have conversations because it invariably look like, you know, this drip, drip, drip of. And you're right to point out Robert Jenrick was, you know, a bit of a failed minister. He didn't take his defeat gracefully for the leadership, but he also didn't do that well when he was a minister either, and he's gone over. And the others that have gone over, I don't think a lot of your colleagues are terribly sad about. I mean, one of them, I shan't betray any confidences, but said that reform was the best natural laxative the Conservative Party has had in some time, which felt strong.
Gosh,
not
Layla,
my words.
That's an unpleasant
not my
image,
words.
I think.
I know, not
really.
the best image. Not the best image. I think, but I will say something, though, and I don't think these psychodramas within parties are actually very good for democracy. No. And we had enough of it, frankly, from you lot at the last election. We really looked forward to not having that in this Parliament. And unfortunately, it looks like you're all continuing to squabble like rats in a sack.
Well, what about, hang on, Layla.
We've got big issues in this country, like the NHS, like the cost of living, that we need to get on and solve. So I really hope that this doesn't continue. For all of our sakes, we've had enough.
But Layla, why aren't you doing better then? You've got 72 Lib Dem MPs.
We've got 72 Lib Dem
I know,
MPs.
but look where you are in the polls. So the latest poll of polls, you're last. I mean, apart from some little parties hardly anyone's heard of, you're below Reform, Tories, Labour, Greens, and then it's the Lib Dem.
And then if
what is going wrong with your party?
And in other polls, if you look at who's the most trusted leader, it's Ed Davey and the Liberal
Well, he's never
Democrats.
getting anywhere near it on the polling at the moment. What's going wrong?
Well, all I will say to that is we've got 72 Lib Dem MPs, way more than at the last election. Right by you, you've got Cheadle and you've got Hazel Grove very nearby, places that we won because.
So why aren't you doing better? That's what I'm asking you.
We are doing well.
Well,
And
not in the polls, you're not.
Well, I'll tell you what. Here's a poll that really matters. By-elections last year, actual ballots in boxes. Which party won the most number of by-elections of any of the parties, including Reform? The Liberal Democrats. When it comes to actual ballots in boxes, which are the only polls I care about, we are doing very well. We're looking forward towards May, and we think at the next election, especially with the right split in the way it is, and us competitive and Tory-facing seats, we are going to continue to do very well indeed. Thank you.
Briefly, you wanted to come back in.
I just want to make this point that, you say the shadow cabinet is divided. I've never seen it more united.
Well, that's this.
Well, next week, maybe.
Next week. I mean, hang on. That was only a week ago.
What I mean by that is, Robert was going off and doing his own thing with his videos and what have you, but the rest of the team have been working incredibly closely.
Andrew Rosendale, Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs,
in the Shadow Cabinet. I've been working with our shadow education team on mental health because obviously it's important for my portfolio. Likewise with Helen Waitley in DWP. We are working very much as a team.
No one else is going to defect.
No one else is going?
Well, I've no idea.
All right.
All I know is in our shadow cabinet we've been working incredibly hard. Our shadow teams are doing the same.
Greg, are the Tories facing extinction?
I don't think extinction, no. And I think it is the oldest party in the world and the most successful party in the world. They're really good at winning elections. I was very critical of the Tory party during the last 2 or 3, or the last 2 or 3 years of their when they were in power. And so I think there's some parallels to what's happening in the U.S. The MAGA movement, the Trump movement, is very similar to Reform. It's when large groups of voters are disappointed with all the parties. So even, Tory voters were disappointed with the Tories. I think in many ways they governed from the center left during Boris Johnson and David Cameron, Theresa May. I think, so there's that voter frustration. It's why not only the MAGA movement in the U.S., but look at Vox in Spain and AFD in Germany and National Front in France. I mean, the parties of the right in the Netherlands, for example, the parties of the sort of new parties of the right are leading in many Western European countries. You can even say the current Italian government is reflecting that. So I think the rise of Reform. There's so many people who could be in both parties, right? And you've seen.
What about Liz Truss? I mean, as I understand it, you think she's been the most successful leader for the Tories in recent years.
No, I didn't say that.
Did you not? I thought you thought she was the best thing to come out of the Tory party.
From my perspective, I didn't say she's the most successful. Obviously,
you think
she
was
wasn't if she lasted 45 days. But and by the way, Liz is a friend, and I'm all for her. But her policies were the only ones that were policies of the right. Now, maybe you can argue that the execution wasn't perfect, but clearly,
there's a theme there.
Supply-side economics, for example. So she was more Margaret Thatcher than David Cameron and Boris. Boris had Boris and Rishi had price caps and windfall taxes and net zero. I mean, all these things that Joe Biden could only dream of when he was president. He couldn't get done, and yet Boris and Rishi got them done.
Woman here in the green top.
And there was just reference to democracy, and I don't really understand how constituents vote in an MP and they can defect to another party and there isn't a by-election.
I agree.
Just don't understand how that can work.
Yes, because Robert Jenner said he's not going to have a by-election. And the woman here in the front in the pink sweater.
I think the Conservatives defecting to Reform will do Reform more harm than good. I think the voters spoke at the last election for Conservatives, and for them to be defecting now to Reform, I think that's damaging Reform, and I think they are slightly dropping in the polls, which is.
And you think that's why?
Pardon?
You think that's why?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man behind you.
It's not just Conservative, though, is it? Nigel Farage, over these last few days, has stated that there's a prominent Labour MP planning on defecting and going over to Reform. I'd be interested to hear what Emily would say to that. Presumably it's not you, Emily.
Well, let's ask Emily.
Tomorrow
Who
morning.
is it?
No,
is there such a person?
It's not me. I don't know if he said a Labour MP. I think he said a prominent Labour figure, but, you know, which could be anybody, let's face it. I mean, but what I obviously would say to anybody on the Labour side is look very carefully at what kind of party you would be joining. And look at the people in it, look at their policies, look at the fact that Robert Jenrick, you know, who was saying, I mean, you know, he had one foot out the door when he was saying that he was disappointed he hadn't been able to see a white face when he was in Birmingham, if you remember. I mean, his hair was getting shorter, he was going further to the right. It was obvious he was on his way to reform. And then finally...
Because his hair was getting shorter.
As his politics got more right-wing, his hair got shorter. Didn't you notice?
But do you
when
think
he was
the two
like
were
a centrist... I don't know. But when he was a centrist Tory MP... I'm just saying that, you know, it was just all part of the same thing. And, you know, and then he writes a letter of resignation, and he has a whole campaign around how he's going to... And then Kemi finds it, and then she's complimented at being so forthright and decisive at chucking him out. Well, he was practically gone, and she found his resignation letter. That is not necessarily evidence of strength. That is, I have to do it. Obviously, I have to.
A lot more strength than Keir Starmer with the cabinet ministers that are plotting against him.
I don't think cabinet ministers are plotting against him. I think that's nonsense. I think it's absolute nonsense. This was a guy
Andy
who'd written
Burnham,
the letter...
not interested in Keir Starmer's job?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, at the last I heard from Andy Burnham, he said that he was going to go through this term. He had no interest in going to Westminster in the near future, and he was going to carry on with his stuff. So I don't know. That's
I mean,
the last I heard from
constituency
him.
is becoming available, as you know, underground.
Yes.
I need to double-check exactly what Andy Burnham said. I hope someone will correct me if I got this wrong. I think he said he couldn't predict the future.
He said, I'm committed to my... I've got it written down.
Oh,
I'm
brilliant.
committed to my third term, absolutely, and I'm not intending to come to Westminster anytime soon. And he's also said the best person to be Prime Minister is Keir Starmer. Now, I don't know, maybe he's, you know, like, that sounds to me like something else.
When was that, though?
So, a best person to be Prime Minister is Keir Starmer, he said at conference.
Yeah.
No, since the constituency came free this evening.
Oh, I don't know what he said since then.
Okay.
He hasn't ruled it out,
Right.
is my understanding.
As I understand, he hasn't ruled it out, but I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, woman here in the front.
So, as a member of the general public and, you know, listening to the political parties and everything that comes out of Parliament, I can honestly say everybody's sick to death of the fighting, the back-bitching, the stabbing, the moving from the left to the right. Oh, do you want to be in the centre? Yeah, come to the right. You want to get on the left? Which side? Who wants to be on? Where do you go? I mean, how can we keep up with it? We're not allowed to have general elections. Who decided to stop our political general election for May, where we can vote
Oh, you're talking about the council elections?
Yeah, the council
general
elections.
election, yeah.
Who decided that?
Yeah.
Because that
Shameful.
decides who's in Parliament. Then we decide who goes to Parliament. Then you're going to decide you want to go be on that side. You decide you're going to be on that side. And exactly what this lady said here at the front before. We can't keep up with it. And the twisted derogatory that is coming out of Parliament, we all sick of it, because the country, we all trying to go to work, make a living, pay our bills, pay our taxes that are going up all the time, and people are absolutely feeling the back of it. And you have to realise, right, we're all privileged people. We've got jobs, we've got abundance of everything, we all work really hard, everybody comes together. We live in a beautiful, civilised society. And then we have to listen to all this political, you know...
So can I ask you, and you don't have to tell me how you'd vote, but do you know how you'd vote in the next election? Which is
Well, I can honestly tell you, right, I've only ever voted once in my whole life. How sad is that? For someone who's been able to...
Is that because you just didn't know where to put your vote?
For someone who's been able to vote, right, for 42 years, I have only ever been driven to vote once.
OK, you've got to tell us who that was for now.
No, I'm not going to tell
All
you.
right, fair enough. OK, fair enough. I'll put you on the spot. OK, I'm going to move on and take another question. Loads of you asked about this. Loads of you. So let's give it a go. William McBride, where are you sitting? William, right, off you go.
How can we balance protecting green spaces like Adlington Newtown
with the urgent need for more house building.
Right, now all of you here will know exactly what this is about, but those of you at home may not be quite so aware, so I'm going to fill you in. Adlington is a small village located between Macclesfield and Stockport. It's been selected as one of 12 potential locations to be developed into one of the government's new towns. Now, currently, Adlington is home to about 1,200 people. It's got a railway station, it's got a pub, and it's got a church. Under the new plans, it would go from 1,200 into a town with 14 to 20,000 homes built on largely green belt land. And there's plenty of farms on it as well. Emily, how do you balance protecting green spaces with the need for more house building? And here is a case in point, and it is opposed by the local Labour MP.
I know about Adlington because I know Tim Rocker, who's the local MP. Who's been bending my ear about it, but he's also been bending the ear of the minister as well. And I know that he's doing his best to represent the interests of this area and the views of this area, which is a worry about the building on green space. He also knows, and we all know, that we need to build for the sake of the next generation. If we want our granddaughters down the road, we have to build houses down the road. I mean, we just have to. So what we have to do is take clever looks at where we can build. And obviously one of the advantages of a new town is it squares off the criticism that's quite often made when you just get small infill, which is we're just getting bigger all the time, we're not getting the extra infrastructure, we're not getting the extra doctor surgeries and schools and roads and da-da-da-da. But if you set up a new town, then you can do it as a community with all of the infrastructure as well. So it is hard. But one thing we can't afford to say is we can't keep saying no. We have to build, because otherwise our children are not going to have anywhere to live, and they won't be able to have our grandchildren. And we need to be able to continue to build, unless the only way to get past the housing crisis is to build more homes.
I mean, there's a
the question now is where.
There's a 19,000 strong petition against it.
I know.
And what you're saying is, you might hate it, but tough luck, we're going to...
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, we're not going to build there. Where are we going to build? Because the homes are needed.
So effectively, you're saying tough luck?
No, I'm not. I'm saying we need to build more homes because, you know, at the next planning meeting, you may well get people turning up who don't want the homes near them. But what you won't get is you won't get the families who actually would have an opportunity to have a home if only those houses were built.
Do you think this new town should go ahead?
Oh, I'm not making the decision, and I don't know enough. But I can tell you that I do know that we need to build more homes, and I know that you need to build more homes around here. And if you ask people under 35 in Macclesfield, they know that there needs to be more homes built because they don't have anywhere to go.
Lots of hands up. Now listen, all of you, be reasonably brief, or else I won't get enough of you in. It's man here in the front to begin with.
I'm father of 2 children. They're going to need affordable homes at some point in the future. So I'm going to come off affordable homes. I'm going to talk about food security. In a world of defence threats and climate threats, how is building on farmland going to help us with food security for the nation?
You said let's talk to people under 35. I'm going to take a risk. I think you're under 35 at the very back there. Is that fair? Right. What do you think of this?
Well, I just think it should have been proposed not by a private company. And on top of this, there should have been at least some sort of consultation with the local public.
Yeah. Do you support the idea?
No.
You don't?
No, no.
OK. Woman there in the stripy top.
I'm going to sideswipe the question slightly to the other issue you have is how do you expect developers to be able to develop these when the costs for them are growing exponentially? There was a citing not so long ago that their costs are going to increase by like 3,000% in the next 10 years.
What, building costs?
Yeah. They've got costs of funding, they've got costs of materials, they're all increasing exponentially. And it's actually not viable for a lot of developers to fund and work on these like you expected to before. So more and more developers are actually going into receivership, are going into liquidation, and you're not going to have the developers around to do these assets in the first place.
Woman in the... I can't quite see what you're wearing, but the long brown hair, yes.
Hi, yeah, I'm under 35. I'm from the local area. The answer is brownfield sites first, and we have plenty of that in Macclesfield. The answer is also affordable homes. There is not a single home in this proposal under £400,000, which is not affordable.
Yeah. What about the woman in the middle? Who can get a microphone to her? Yes, there you go.
My
concern is the cost. If they go ahead and build these houses, how can the government actually justify it when they've got other policies to do with protecting carbon capture and things? The costs far outweigh the benefits. Like, yes, we need houses. I'm also under 35 and I don't own a home. I aspire to one day own one, but I don't aspire to own a home in Adlington Newtown because they wouldn't be within my price bracket. How can a government that's saying, yes, we're all about ecological...
about the environment.
Yeah, we're all about the environment. We want to offset carbon costs, but we want to dig up farmland and release carbon willy-nilly and sacrifice wildlife and the green that makes England so...
And the woman next to you?
Emily talked about infrastructure, but the problem with these big developments is that the houses come first and everything else follows much later, and it's the other surrounding areas like Poynton and Macclesfield that will bear the brunt of it, and their services are already stretched. And I agree that I do hope these developers go into receivership and that we concentrate on brownfield sites. And
so look, one of the reasons we wanted to take this question, I mean, we choose our questions based on what you are most interested in. It's pretty much as simple as that. And as you know, you submit your questions when you arrive this evening, and we make our decision based on that. But what I think we're hearing, and the reason I wanted you to discuss on the panel tonight, is I suspect a microcosm of the debates that are going to be had every time one of these new towns is proposed. And this is what we're seeing writ large here. People want houses, but they don't want them here. Is there anyone here who supports this plan? OK, got a few hands up. The man in the glasses there.
Yeah. I'm under 35 as well. I support the new town. I think a lot of people who are against it have lost faith in the state, the country's ability to deliver big projects like this. So people think, well, we'll never get the schools, we'll never get the GPs. This is all a load of rubbish, basically. Maybe I'm a naive optimist, but I think this is an opportunity to build a beautiful, well-designed, human-centric place. And as much as maybe the house prices will be high when they get built, they'll be a damn sight higher if we don't build anything.
OK, and you, in the grey sweater here in the front, you put your hand up as well.
Yeah, I've got 4 children. I'm over 35 for information.
It's OK, you do it.
Thank you. I know I don't look it. And one of the issues that we have locally, ultimately, is we don't have enough housing, number one. We've got the space locally because we've got the green belt where we are in Macclesfield. We're local to a major town of Stockport and a big city of Manchester. We've got other infrastructure in place. We've got mainline railways. We've got big international airports. We've got the space, we've got the kids that are going to buy the houses. What we really need to do is work with the local government to get what Macclesfield needs as well, some additional funding down here. I think it's been mentioned by others. So we need some more funding going into the schools down here to get the overflow whilst they're starting to build, so we can improve the services down here. And also get sort of, as Metrolinks come into Stockport, get better connections into Stockport as well to allow this new town that's going to be built there, because it's going to happen, be done the way that the locals want it to be done. So we can have the green belt still within the estate, so it can be a green village like Woodford Garden Village, which is a local one.
There won't be farmland, though, obviously.
No, there won't. I mean, one of the arguments that I've heard recently on some of the topics that are local have been like, oh, the farmers are going to lose the lands. A lot of those farms, I'm not judging all farms here or in the area, but the tenement farmers, I know there's a farmer, obviously a couple in the room here, but there's tenement farmers there as well. And yet we will be losing some of that space, and that's what will happen.
Are you a farmer there? You were sort of nodding away, and I thought, yes. Okay.
Yeah, I farm in Adlington, and I'll be directly affected. I've been put on the ring for the new town, even though it's privately owned between the family. My granddad moved there in 1956, and what we've been saying before about everything that's going on in the world, why is food security not on the government's list? We've got to produce food. It's carried out for regeneration. There's brownfield areas. Adlington is all green. There's no brown or grey. And it's the most wooded parish in Cheshire. And to say, oh, we're going to spend how many million on rewilding or whatever for nature, it's ludicrous to build an Adlington. The Green Belt was created to stop urban sprawl. This is just Manchester sprawling out into Cheshire. It'll be concrete all the way from Manchester to Macclesfield.
All right, listen, let me bring the rest of the panel. You sat here very politely listening to it. Stuart, now listen, it's worth pointing out you've objected to developments in your area. A new link road that's going to be built in South East Bradford. You didn't want that. Presumably you are sympathetic to what people are saying.
I very much am, because I'm a big fan of neighbourhood planning. Because it is then communities identifying the sites that they think that should be developed, and also the type of housing that that community needs. What happens too often to people is they get presented with a new application for a big estate, and guess what? They're 4, 5, 6, 7 bedroom houses that local people can't afford, and there are very few starter homes. My understanding is that the affordable housing element to this, the house prices are £400,000. Well, you know, you need to earn a lot of money to be able to afford that. I also understand there are 178 brownfield sites in East Cheshire alone. Why are we not regenerating those first? Why are we not putting the houses there and allow the local people to identify them? And I'm sorry to say, but things are going to get a lot worse, because the government have introduced the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, which is taking local voices away from these big decisions. They're centralising...
But isn't that, in the end, the only way to get it done?
Not if it's going to destroy
object
these
to
people's community.
Yeah, no, and listen, I'm not defending. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's what should happen. But in the end, because obviously the house building record under the Tories was lamentable.
No,
Isn't
it wasn't
in the end,
actually. No, it wasn't actually.
Well, it was nothing like what you planned to build.
2.8 million houses were built during our time, and in the years from 2018, they were the highest number of houses being built in 30 years.
It was far less than you pledged to build.
But the reality is, well, this government are having a problem, and I get it. But that's why I say, let's do neighbourhood planning. We've never really done that properly, in my view. Because if you said to these people here, identify the sites for the types of houses that their families would need, I bet you, and the evidence is in some places where they have done this well, they've ended up building more houses than they've needed in the end. So I believe in giving it to local people to work, and not just big developers coming along and deciding what they are going to have to put up with.
Layla.
I find myself totally agreeing with neighbourhood planning, but I will say, under the last government, it wasn't all that much better. This top-down, Westminster-centric approach to how we build houses, doing things to communities, not working with communities, is not the answer to this problem. I think in this room and in this discussion, we've got a range of voices who I think know best about how to deliver this, who understand where those lines are, and they will be different for different communities. And this sledgehammer approach that this government's taken, but it's a plan that I understand was conceived under the last government. This isn't how you get it done. Places that do build a lot of houses, and I would add, for example, the Vale of Whitehorse District Council, right where I am, had at one point had the highest rates of house building in the country, because the Liberal Democrat approach to this is always bottom up. You start by working with communities, you do consultation, you do neighbourhood planning, which, by the way, is being stripped out. It's not being funded, and we have many examples of this, they are much smaller developments, they are often much more affordable. With it, however, you have to allow councils to borrow at cheaper rates. There's a reason why they're building on Greenbelt, and we know why. It's much cheaper to build on Greenbelt than it is to redevelop brownfield sites. So if you let local people do it in a way that they've had the conversation, then you get more done, built more quickly in a way that they actually want. Well, all that happens in Oxford when they build these big developments is you get, literally, there are fields empty waiting for a GP practice that isn't there, and all you get are commuters from London who can't afford London anymore, who buy the homes, and it's not for local people anyway. It's a broken system, and I am sorry to say the way the Labour government have now reformed it is going to make it less likely that we're going to achieve this in a non-adversarial way than more.
Woman in the stripy shirt.
My concern is for the NHS. The house prices that are suggested for these are not for the young people, the young fitter people. These are for the older people. Our NHS is already struggling in Macclesfield. How will it cope with more?
Man here in front.
Yeah, I just want to say building on greenfield sites is one thing, but the utter rubbish which some of the major house builders are putting up and getting away with is just totally
the quality
unacceptable.
of the housing.
Yeah, just
very true.
Awful. You know, the snagging issues, you know, crumbling brickwork, you know, real dangerous electrics, all sorts, and Doing that on a greenfield site is just appalling, I think.
Woman at the very back there.
I've recently become a first-time buyer in Macclesfield, and it took nearly 7 or 8 months of looking to find a house that was in my price range. So to think that there could be 20,000 new houses and I still couldn't afford to move there is incredibly disappointing. But also just to say we need to be looking at the amount of vacant buildings we have. We have a lot of housing stock, and it's not a huge part of the argument at the moment.
Okay. As far as the average, the price of the affordable housing, my understanding is that and I know lots of you are experts in this, is that we aren't absolutely sure what the affordable house price will be at the moment, unless someone has got chapter and verse on that. So we're all talking about 400 grand. I'm not sure that's a fact. Greg, I know this is not necessarily your wheelhouse, as the Americans like to say. But what's your view?
But I think it's a problem everywhere, and we're seeing young people in the U.S. that are having problems buying houses for a number of different reasons. But I think what I've heard from the audience is fantastic, which is the local solution. And I've heard brownfield mentioned a few times. I know it's more expensive to build on brownfield, but the market will figure it out. Let the free market do it. I'm totally with Layla on this. Shocker. It should be done locally. And so top-down management never works, especially in housing. Yep. Like education, it's a local issue. Luckily, in America, we have 50 different experiments to different states. You might guess that I kind of lean to the red states. But what's happening in California and New York is criminal, because people have to leave the state to be able to buy a home because of the over-regulation and the not-in-my-backyard crowd. So, and I know, that the NIMBY crowd exists everywhere. So it has to be done locally, because you don't want top-down, because every neighborhood is different, every market is different.
Can I make a very quick point, Fiona, about the word affordable? So affordable is often described as 80% of market value. But that's, when in an area that's unaffordable to begin with, that's not helpful, because that's not actually affordable. It should be a definition that is determined by the average wage of the people in the area. And secondly, we focus a lot on the buying, but also, can I just make a case for social rents? Because so many people, especially young people, they're paying such exorbitant rent that they can't even afford to save up the deposit to think about putting it down for that first house. Actually, if we focused a bit more on social rents, as well as what you might sell it for, then I think we might actually solve some of the problems for the young people who want to buy the houses in the future.
Man in the glasses there.
I can't help but thinking that at this early stage, if we engage in the process in good faith, a lot of the arguments against it at the moment are around infrastructure, but we potentially have the opportunity to work to find lots of improved infrastructure for the wider area in terms of schools, hospitals, railways and roads, and that this could potentially be a big opportunity for the area.
All right, so I've got just about a minute left. Let me hear a couple more views. The woman slightly further forward in the flowery shirt.
Just to say that if the infrastructure for the NHS, where are you going to get that from? My father's recently been in hospital and he spent 3 days in a chair waiting for a bed, and you want to build more houses. And the NHS aren't coping now. So where do you think you're going to get the infrastructure for the NHS?
Man in the check shirt here.
Before you build 20,000 houses, could you fix the potholes, please?
I wondered how long it would be before someone mentioned potholes. What you don't know at home is that every week when we record the programme, we do a question before we start recording. We call it a warm-up question, which is not generally sort of overtly political, and everyone piles in and we just kind of get a feeling of how it's going to work. And potholes comes up every week. Anyway, one week we will do it in the programme proper, I promise you. Right, we're going to end it there, but thank you so much for all your contributions. I know that was something you felt so strongly about, so we had so many questions on it. I want to make sure that we covered it this evening. But for now, I want to say thank you to our panel, thank you to our audience here, and of course thank you to you at home for watching as well. Remember that we are in Kings Lynn next week and Dorking the week after if you want to come and be part of the Question Time website. And remember, of course, that we're also on iPlayer and Sounds and the news channel at 9 o'clock if after 10 o'clock news on BBC One is a bit late for you. Anyway, we shall see you next week. But for now, thank you to everybody. Thanks for watching. From Macclesfield, bye-bye.